Jim Trotter, I imagine, from your time at Howard University, you spent a little bit of time in the great city of Baltimore, right? I mean, right down the road, 45 minutes, an hour. You spent a little time. Now, I'm not trying to get you to incriminate yourself because, you got a little smirk there, like you done some damage in Baltimore. I wasn't even going there. But now I'm getting some...
No, it's more of I was too poor to go anywhere, so I rarely got too far off campus. So I was just kind of laughing about that. But no, never really got down to Baltimore unless I was flying into Baltimore because it was a cheaper flight to get me to campus.
Okay, all right. So, but you've been to Baltimore over the years, and I've been to Baltimore over the years. We don't have to be local historians. We don't have to be local historians to understand what a huge day this is in Baltimore, Maryland. And I'm talking about for the Baltimore Ravens. This is off the field. This is one of the biggest off-field days in the history of the franchise, in the history of football in Baltimore. I go back to it. So they drafted John Elway first overall. He said, no, I don't want to play there. And they traded him to Denver. That was a big day for the franchise. Another big day for the franchise when they, packed up the moving trucks. They snuck out of town like some chumps. Went from Baltimore to Indianapolis.
Where are you from again? Where are you from again?
Hey, I'm just saying. No, I'm coming there. See, that first one had nothing to do with me. The second one did. They snuck out of town.
About. Right. That's what I'm talking about.
Then they snuck back into town. Art Modell snuck into town, made a deal with Baltimore, and so the Ravens were born. First season, 1996. So I'm saying right now, Super Bowls aside, this is one of the biggest days in the history of the franchise because they have to make a decision on what they're going to do with Lamar Jackson. If they give him the non-exclusive franchise tag coming up here pretty soon, they have to make a decision. If they do it, then he's probably
gone.
Out. Yep. He's probably out. If they bring him back like I think they should put the tag on him. They should negotiate a long-term deal with Lamar Jackson, keeping him in this franchise, in this city, for the bulk of his career. I'm not going to say the remainder of his career, but the bulk of his career, his prime years, should be spent in Baltimore. And Jim, I'll say this before I pass it over to you. I just think a lot of organizations get so close to the negotiations, get so close to seeing a player every day that it's easy to take greatness and extreme talent for granted. And you think, okay, it's just another good player in our organization. And no player is bigger than another. And we will replace him as we've replaced other great players over the years. Not so much with quarterbacks. Remember that first city I said? Baltimore crept off too. They were creeping to Indianapolis. Ask Indianapolis how hard it is to replace a quarterback because they've been trying. They've been trying since Andrew Luck said he didn't want to play anymore. I don't know what you think the Baltimore Ravens should do. To me, it's pretty clear. What do you think?
Oh, absolutely what I'm thinking. Look, I said in my feed that whatever they decide today in terms of the tag, it's not the ending. It's simply the beginning. And I mean that truly from this standpoint. So as you say, if they don't use the exclusive franchise tag, I do believe he's gone. I do believe another team will step up and put forth an offer that Baltimore will not match. Secondly, if they use the exclusive tag, now the question becomes, will he even show up for off-season workouts? Because most fans, I'm sure, understand that he doesn't have to sign that tag right away. He can drag it out as long as he wants and maybe never sign it, not even play this year if he chose to. And the reason I say that's important is this. They have hired a new offensive coordinator. Imagine not having your starting quarterback at off-season workouts or potentially not even in training camp, and then think you're going to sign him to a long-term deal the week of the opener and expect him to be up to speed and at full strength and have some sort of synergy with the other people in that offense. So in my opinion, if they do not sign Lamar Jackson to a long-term deal before off-season workouts begin, they're basically throwing away the season. And I truly feel that way, and I believe that.
Yeah.
Because, again, this is not like he's stepping back into an offense that he is familiar with. This is something new, and everyone is going to have to learn it. And so from that standpoint, today isn't the deadline, as some might say. To me, the real deadline becomes the start of OTAs if you don't sign him to a long-term deal. Because if I'm Lamar Jackson and I'm exercising the leverage that I have, I'm not stepping on that field for off-season workouts or training camp or anything else until I feel I have a deal that I want. Now, having said that, though, to you, Mike, I'll say this. I would sign my franchise tag before week 1 and make sure I get every dollar available to me under that. But I'm not doing the organization any favors prior to that.
So Lamar Jackson was just franchised. He was just given a franchise. And Gary, it was a non-exclusive franchise tag? Gave him the non-exclusive franchise tag, Jim. Just happened. Baltimore Ravens. And so you know, I've been covering the league for a long time. Tell the people what that means. Non-exclusive franchise tag in English for those, and for the dogs in the audience. What does that mean?
It means that now other teams can talk with him and they can make a contract offer to him. And whatever that offer is now, the Ravens have an opportunity, a right of first refusal, basically. They can either match it and keep the player, or they can decline to match it and therefore would receive 2 first-round draft picks in exchange, and Lamar would then sign with the club that made the offer to him. So the question becomes, depending on what the offer is, are the Ravens willing to meet whatever that price is or the value that another franchise has placed on Lamar? Or are they saying, for us, 2 first-round picks is more valuable than the player? It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, I'm just so curious, and I would love to know how they arrived at this decision to put the non-exclusive franchise tag on him, because I look at it, Jim. Tell me if I've just got it. I'm sure I just got it all twisted, but if it's my guy, if it's Lamar Jackson, he's got the profile that he does. I know the playoff performances haven't been that great. He's never won a Super Bowl, but he's been an MVP at the age of 23. You drafted him at the end of the first round, great value, all that stuff, all wonderful things. And you keep saying he's our guy, we like him, and hard worker and rare talent. I'm just not letting, if I'm trying to do my business, Jim, and I love you. Jim, I love you. I'm just going to use my own example. If I have something to do at my house, I'm not going to make it open so Jim Trotter can come in and determine my budget. I mean, and you're my boy. I mean, why would I allow, I've got a vision of how I want this thing to go, how much I want to pay. Now I've opened up the portal and allowed 31 other teams, theoretically, 31 other teams to come in, and they can screw up my budget if they want to. Or if I want them to go, you go ahead and sign to a contract. I'll take your draft picks. It's just so, it's so loose. It's so fatalistic. It's so ridiculous. It lacks real vision, in my opinion. And I'm surprised because, as I've told Rita Hubbard, the football chick, many times, I have such high regard for the Ravens. I always think they do it right. And the last year or so, I'm not so sure.
I think you were spot on with that at the end. They have been one of the best run organizations in the NFL for some time now. But in this Lamar Jackson situation, I think they have handled it about as poorly as you can. Let's go back a couple of years ago when he first became eligible for an extension. If you were the Ravens at that point, you would want to get it done there, because teams seem to forget that every year that you wait to sign a franchise quarterback, the price goes up. So it's not like you're helping yourself by waiting from that standpoint. Now, I heard another reporter say today that, well, Lamar hurt himself a few years ago when he didn't use his leverage at that point, and he played for $1.7 million instead of holding out to get the long-term extension. And my response to that is, Michael, you know this. If Lamar Jackson at that point had said, I'm not stepping on the field unless I get a long-term, multi-year deal. The fallout would have been, what a selfish player, and how can somebody pass up this money? And particularly, and I'm not taking race out of the equation, we're talking about a black quarterback here, how that would have been met by some in the population. So I think Lamar said at that point, you know what? I'm not hurting my team. I'm betting on myself. And he went out and he played. And now last year again, he's saying, I know what my value is. I know what my worth is. You are not going to tell me what my value is. And so he is held firm to that. And so, as I have said to you in the past, Lamar Jackson is probably my favorite player in the NFL. I know as reporters, right? From this standpoint, Michael, he is the most authentic player I have seen come into the NFL in some time. He does not care what I think. He does not care what you think. He does not care what anyone else thinks. It's only about what he thinks and what his small circle of advisors and people and family think. And he holds true to that. So from that standpoint, one thing I love about any individual is authenticity, especially when it is someone who is positive and productive. And that is Lamar Jackson. So for me, I say, Lamar, do your thing, get your money, because owners are going to get their money in the best way that they can. And that's the NFL, and that's big business.
Well, he's going to win regardless. His worst case scenario, is he's going to make $32 million this year with the Baltimore Ravens and not have a long-term deal. No, that's not bad. Okay, that's the worst case scenario for him. Best case scenario is that one of these other teams swoops in and signs him to a contract that is significantly more, obviously, than that $32 million. And so Lamar Jackson doesn't care what you think or I think, but I care what you think. And I want to know, what do you think is going to happen? Because if I'm the Jets, as we talk about them,
how about if you're the Dolphins? Dolphins?
But the Jets are sitting here with Aaron Rodgers. They're going back and forth, and hey, it's not going to cost them that much. It's going to cost Green Bay more if they move them to New York. They're going to get a $40 million dead money hit, which is outrageous, right? But the Jets can handle him. If Aaron Rodgers goes to the Jets, the cap numbers are not that high. But you've been negotiating with the Packers for Aaron Rodgers. Wouldn't you now think, wait a minute, Lamar Jackson is younger. He doesn't have the resume that Aaron Rodgers does. But we're not talking about a 2-year window. We get a veteran quarterback. He's technically a veteran quarterback who's not even 30 years old. Why don't we just go and throw some dollars at Lamar Jackson and let somebody else get Aaron Rodgers? I don't know. I mean, it's just that the possibilities are open now for a lot of teams who are looking in the draft for a quarterback or looking around the league. And now there's this, I know 2 first-round picks is significant. I'm not trying to say, oh, that's nothing to pay, but for Lamar Jackson,
but it's not really.
I don't think the price is that high.
No, it's not. And particularly if you're a team like Miami that's drafting at the bottom of the first round this year, let's say, or near the bottom, why wouldn't you give up 2 first rounds? Look, we all know the draft is a crapshoot as it is, particularly if you're drafting a quarterback in the top 10. History has shown us that more of them are going to fail to live up to that expectation of being a franchise quarterback than will actually become a franchise quarterback. So from that standpoint, if you have a proven commodity in Lamar Jackson, who, as you say, is young, who is, by all accounts, a tremendous leader, I'll never forget this, Michael. So his second year, I'm at the Hall of Fame game. And mind you, he has only started, I think at that point, 6 games or something from the previous year, from his rookie season. So I'm at the Hall of Fame game and I'm talking with someone from the organization who had been with the organization since it was in Cleveland. And this person says to me, Lamar Jackson, among his teammates, is the most popular player that I've ever seen. And I said, wait a minute, hold on here. I said, you've had Ed Reed, you've had Ray Lewis, Jonathan Ogden, others, and you're going to tell me a guy who hasn't even played 2 full seasons is the most popular player among his teammates you have ever seen? And this player said, absolutely. And I think part of that goes back to what I said to you earlier. about his authenticity. All Lamar Jackson cares about is winning and being there for his guys, you know, in terms of doing right. Now, business is a separate issue here. And I remember the day after he was drafted, when I met with him, we flew out to Baltimore, met with him. I said, Lamar, I'm going to give you two choices here. You can have a gold jacket as a Hall of Famer, or you can have a Vince Lombardi trophy as a Super Bowl champion. Which one are you taking? And he didn't hesitate. He said the Vince Lombardi trophy. He said, I have won a Heisman. And he said, if I win a Super Bowl, people know who I am. They'll know what I've done. The rest will come. His focus was on winning a championship. That's who Lamar is as I know it. That's what he is about. And nothing in his past that I know since he got into the NFL has been something that is disingenuous or a straight out falsehood to us. He is who he is. He doesn't hide it. And he goes out, he wins games, and he wins over teammates.
All right. Now, Jim, I'm just going to be, I feel like it's important to be transparent at all times. As I get a little bit older, I'm trying to get a little bit better at that, a little bit better. I'm a work in progress. Okay, let's put it that way. I'm a work in progress. So I will tell you that the entire league, every franchise for me is on notice because of the NFLPA report that came out last week. Great job by the PA of just giving us information about each franchise and how they do business as a workplace, weight rooms and nutrition, strength coaches, all that stuff. Y'all, some of y'all are nasty, okay? Some of y'all are nasty and you're cheap. Hey, Jacksonville, you can't get an exterminator to get rats out. It takes you a month to get rid of rats. You're just nasty and you're trifling. Okay. So every franchise has something, except for Minnesota. Except for Minnesota and Las Vegas. Way up there, players love what they're doing in Minnesota and Las Vegas. New facilities, everything's great. But most of these franchises, it made me look 2 or 3 times at franchises that I had never really questioned before. I'm like, oh, really? Y'all do that kind of stuff? So I have to let you know that because I'm naturally going to be critical of management because of what I saw last week. I think every management team in the NFL really needs to do some self-scouting and open up the budget a little bit more. It's embarrassing in a lot of cases. That being said, can we make a case for Baltimore? Like they drafted the player, they developed him, they rebuilt their offense around him. They were there when he won his MVP. Why? I mean, like, if I did that, there's no way I'm letting that guy go. Do they know something? Have they seen something? Because they're generally not, these are the A students. They don't sit in the back of the class, you know, playing video games during the lecture. You know,
look,
they pay attention. They see Professor Trotter. They see Professor Trotter during office hours. You know what I mean? Like, these are your good students. Why wouldn't they? What are they missing?
To me, the writing was on the wall. The minute Deshaun Watson signed that contract, fully guaranteed contract, and we heard and saw Ravens owner Steve Bisciotti come out and criticize that deal as being bad for the league and essentially something the Ravens were not going to follow suit with. And for me, that's when I said, this has the ability to get ugly, right? That if they are not going to pay Lamar, who I believe is a transcendent talent, something that another quarterback who I believe is not his equal received, there's going to be a problem. And we're seeing that now. So look, I don't know the intricacies of what exactly has been offered to Lamar that I can confirm or what he wants necessarily. But the little bit I think I do know about Lamar is he understands his value. And he is not going to let the Ravens determine what his value is.
I'll tell you this, Jim Trotter. March 15th. Teams have until March 15th. Come up with an offer, or they can start coming up with offers on March 15th for Lamar Jackson. Give up a couple of first-round picks? Sure, I would. For an opportunity to have Lamar Jackson as my quarterback for the next 5, 6, 10 years? Certainly. The story continues. It's a big day in Baltimore. And I think, is it Baltimoreans? Is that what y'all call yourselves? It's a sad day.
Right now they call themselves frustrated.
Oh, yeah, that too.
I'm told, guys, that there was a players-only meeting recently where Steven Adams, their veteran center, he spoke out about how the team needs to show better discipline on the road, how they need to stay away from going out when they're on the road. This team is 12-20 on the road this year. They're stellar at home, but that's a poor road record for them. And I'm told those in the room, when Steven Adams spoke out, they knew exactly who he was directing this to. It was no one other than Ja Morant.
All right, that was Shams Charania. You're talking about a players-only meeting in Memphis. Steven Adams, their veteran center, as he said it, speaking up and directly or indirectly, talking about accountability, which brings us back to Ja Morant. I'll say this before we get to that. That game, a lot of people start, they do this on a podcast or like, who's the most famous person in your phone or the phone call that you can make right now? Most famous person in my phone is the Hall of Famer, Marc Spears. I got Marc Spears' number. My man's a Hall of Famer. You got Tom Brady's
number, man. Come on, man. You got Tom Brady's number in your phone.
He retired. He retired.
We got to bow down. We got to bow down.
He passed his prime. He passed his prime. Man, first of all, really, Marc Spears, congratulations. You are a basketball Hall of Fame writer, broadcaster. This is just, what an amazing honor, and we're proud of you. What was your first thought when you got the news?
I can't wait to the press conference so I know it's for real. They don't change their mind. No, man, I just it makes you feel like I'm in this special class that can't be taken away, right? Like, I've been covering NBA for 24 years now, and for them to think that highly of my work is the highest honor that you can get. And they can put my name anywhere, man. It's in there, and it's gonna be in there. And I think the thing that's most special is my OGs, my peers, like you two people that I have extremely high atmospheric moon respect for. And so for you guys to even care and feel the need to tell me congrats, I mean, that means certainly as much to me as anything.
I just want to say I love it, Marc. I was so happy when I saw that come across my social media feed. From this standpoint, I feel like people in our business and people who look like us have not always gotten their due. And me covering the NFL, I think back to guys like Ralph Wiley, Bill Roden, Brian Burwell, folks like that, in my opinion, who should have been recognized a long time ago and have never been recognized by our groups in terms of being in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. So when I see someone like you who has earned it, who has done it the right way, man, I'm just proud. You make us all proud, man.
No, thank you. And then for me, man, it was like David Aldridge and Roscoe Nance, right? And I remember I used to beg Roscoe Nance, the late great Roscoe Nance, to just sit next to him at all-star press conferences and summer league stuff and the finals. Bill Roden, you mentioned him, these amazing people that I had an opportunity to learn from that I love dearly. And, Roscoe's not there, but I feel like a piece of him gets in with me, right? Because he certainly played a role. David Aldridge, really important people, Neil Scarborough, to help me get here. I could rattle off a bunch of names.
Yeah, we always stand on the shoulders of others, man.
Yeah,
that's right.
Exactly.
Get those names together before your speech, because you leave somebody out. You don't have to put me in there, by the way, but you leave somebody out, you might hear about it. But let's talk about the news of the day, the news of the last couple of days, and Shams referenced it right there. Ja Morant, and I know you spent some time talking with him and know what's going on with that organization. What do you think is going to happen with Ja Morant next?
That he's going to take care of himself. If we don't see him the rest of the season, I get it. I understand it. And perhaps it's a good thing. He had a wake-up call. He got shaken. He had a chance to look at himself and where he is. And, you know, it's more important than basketball right now for him. It's getting his life together off the court. Certainly there's a lot of things that you saw from the video that are dangerous, things that have happened the last couple, you know, that Washington Post report, like these are unflattering things. And so I think for the NBA, you know, they do so much to protect these players from a physical standpoint with this, you know, we're going to rest this guy. What do they call it now? I keep forgetting. I forgot the word for it.
Load management. Load management.
Load management.
They need mind management and mental health management, right? Like this kid. Well, he's not a kid. He's a 24-year-old man. He needs to get his life together, and I'd rather him fix it now than us having a much different conversation later.
I think that, Mark, I think you said it perfectly. For me, I think sometimes you have to fall before you can rise. And this one hurt a little bit for me, and it always hurts when I see particularly a young black man who has so much in front of him kind of fall or you know, hit these potholes, if you will. And my question was kind of like, how do you get through to him? Like, I'm an old head now. I did dumb things when I was young, so I don't know that some young guy at 24 is going to listen to me if I offer advice. And you're around the NBA, obviously, every day. How do we get through to these young players to help them fully understand?
I think you're right. I don't know that he listens to us, right? But maybe he listens to a guy like Carmelo Anthony. Right. I wrote a column in Anscape where I detailed how Carmelo went through so many challenges, so many problems early in his career that could have derailed things in an extremely similar way, dangerous way. And what he ended up doing was he ended up getting a group of people together that included family, his mother, his then wife, Lala Anthony, family friend, Bay, Frazier. Then he had guys like Marcus Camby, Kenyon Martin, Brian Russell, guys that, like, you know, really helped him keep an eye on him off the court. Then you had like different even people that you wouldn't know, a player liaison by the name of Dwayne Molyneux, a lady that was taking care of his day-to-day stuff, Marnie Colbert, Asani Swan, who takes care of his business stuff now. Like he put basically like this team mellow together that helped him focus on basketball, take care of the other things, and also be honest with him. Like, bruh, you messing up, man. Nah, we ain't doing that. You got bigger things. And if you look at it now, like, if you read my story, you forgot about all that stuff, right? You forgot about all of Melo's issues. Why? Because he ascended from a basketball standpoint. He got gold medals. And he's like got a wine now, right? He got a book. He's got all these different amazing things going on. He's going to be a future Hall of Famer. Although Melo, I got in before you, but that's beside the point, brother. You know, I had to give him a little something. But to me, like, Melo gave him the blueprint, gave Ja the blueprint to get out of this. And to me, like, if I'm Memphis, sign him, sign Carmelo Anthony, put him in the locker room. If Ja Morant don't listen to Carmelo Anthony, he ain't listening to nobody. Carmelo Anthony has 10 All-Star appearances. He's gone through hell like Ja's going through now. He'd be a phenomenal person to be next to him. And the Grizzlies are one of two teams, the other being the Thunder in the NBA, that don't have a player on their roster that's 30 years of age or older. Like, you can't tell me if Carmelo Anthony walks in that room that they're not going to sit up a little straighter and do things a little more seriously. And I think Melo having a young son, and you guys will laugh at this. I wish I added this line to my story. I think him having a teenage son helps him know how to talk to this younger generation today too, even though he's almost 40. So there's nobody out there better than Melo for this team. I just don't know if Ja will be in the locker room for Melo to help for the rest of the season.
All right, so you said that. Let's say I just want to let's go to the other one. Let's say he's out 5 more games. Not that anybody's putting any kind of pressure on him. But let's say he's out 5 more games. He comes back.
I think that would be surprising.
I know. But what I think I hear you saying, though, if I go back to basketball with Memphis, even if Ja Morant is there, do you think their lack of experience is going to be the thing that prevents them from going to the conference finals? Or is it, or you don't feel that way? Because it seems like
the West is tough. They're all capable of beating it. The West is tough. It may not have anything other than like, hey, you face the Warriors at a top level and healthy, or you face the Clippers at a top level and healthy. So I'm not even going to, but I could tell from being in that locker room, like they need an old head guidance, another head. You look at the impact Udonis Haslem has on that locker room. UD played like 1 game more than me over the last 3 seasons, right? But he has that locker room in check. Iguodala has the ability now with the Warriors, even though he's not playing a lot, to talk to Jonathan Kuminga, to talk to Moses Moody, right? Then you look at a guy like Garrett Temple in New Orleans. You may not even remember that Garrett Temple's on the Pelicans roster.
Right.
That Garrett Temple is integral to keeping that locker room in the right direction, right? To keeping that locker room afloat, to hey, coach, hey, man, you might want to go sit down with Zion today. I can feel like he's a little off. I can sense something. Like, I think every locker room needs an OG. They're so worried about, having some guy at the end of the bench who they think may become something. You better have an OG at the end of that bench to, like, get these teams right, to keep an eye on what's going on, to say, hey, this is not how we do things here. Like, Udonis Haslem, I keep suiting him up until he was 55. The impact that he has on that locker room.
Yeah, and I got to tell you, I got to appreciate you, Mark, and Trotter. I don't know if you know Garrett Temple's story, his story, and his father's story, and LSU.
Amazing.
I mean, amazing. I would say, I know Black History Month is officially over, but it's always unofficially going. That's right.
It's never over.
I would say, all of you within the sound of my voice, do yourselves a favor. Look up the Temple story. Garrett Temple.
The entire family is amazing.
The entire family.
Like, you could do that. They need to be a 30 for 30.
It really does. It really does. So so back to, like, I think you may be. Are you trying to break news here? Because I think you're breaking news. You're telling me that Ja Morant could be out for the season? I mean, we're talking about the regular season.
I'm not breaking any news. I'm not breaking any news.
But tell me, but flesh it out for us. So you think
I'm
he's
just
going to take care of himself?
I just think that his situation is such that perhaps they should really consider. I just don't see him playing until he's in a good space. I'm just speculating. I think. Can I
ask you this, Mark, real quick? Yeah. I'm sorry to interrupt, but do the people around him, most importantly his family, understand that it's got to be about him first now, not about basketball, and all those other things that come with it, whether it's shoe deals or Powerade or whatever. Yeah. This is about getting him right, and if it means sacrificing the season, so be it. Do they understand the importance of that?
I'm sure they do now, because the golden goose could be gone, right? I mean, like, you're watching this video now. I saw this for the first time the other day, and it was one of my friends said, why isn't anybody, grandma there, mom there, dad there, uncles are there? Nobody said nothing. He just doing his thing, like, not only drinking like that, he was drinking, but also being on social media showing everybody this, you know. But I just wonder sometimes, man, we like, he may not be from the hood, but he's from the country, right? He's from South Carolina, and maybe the family hasn't, you get this lottery ticket, you become a millionaire, and maybe everybody else has to grow too. And I would never, like, say anything to disrespect the Morant family. T. Morant has been amazing to me. And I know he's been taking some hits lately about how he's parenting but ultimately, I remember this line by somebody I shouldn't quote, but Jimmy the Greek, right? Like, he said that once he started making money in the horse racing industry, his like dad asked him for $10,000, and so then after that, after he gave it to him, his dad never paid him back. He started calling him by his first name. I think a lot of times when players, they hit this lottery, that there's so many people in their lives that are scared suddenly to say something to them because they wonder if I'm not a yes man to them, maybe I get cut off. Maybe I don't get to be on the ride anymore. They like me, like I'm gonna do what they like, and they seem to like me praising them and telling them they're the greatest since Michael Jordan or whatever. And I'm not saying his family is saying that, but hopefully there's somebody that's like, no, this ain't right, this ain't cool, or maybe they were raised to think this is cool. Maybe their environment where they're from, it is cool, right? But ultimately, that star doesn't just have to change, but a lot of times the people around you have to change. And if they don't, then you got to get new people around you. And when it's family, it hurts more. But, I think all of us have been there, and this is a crisis moment for him where that whole group needs to be better. And they need to change and uplift him and make sure that when he comes back, I hope I see a new Ja Morant with a smile and appreciation and a mental health that is phenomenal, and that he gets a standing ovation for overcoming all this, rather than us, God, dare I say, like talking about something like much deeper, because this is a danger point for him. And I hope we don't see him play for a while, because that means he's doing what he needs to do to make his life better. I don't care about the basketball stuff right now.
Preach.
Yeah,
Preach.
I think that's right, Mark. I think he will get that standing ovation. I don't think anybody's really against him. I haven't heard anybody say,
Black Twitter having a field day.
Yeah, but I think that is more
Black Twitter.
We'll talk about that. We'll talk about that later, though. We'll talk about that later with Jim, because he's got some comedy notes in his feed, and I just think, people, we gonna make fun of stuff just initially, just because.
Laugh to keep from crying, right?
Yeah. But eventually, if you look at the big picture, I think people see the gravity of the situation and really want him to do well. I mean, this is like, I don't know. Last thing I'll say is, I don't know if you had any other takeaways from that the retired player survey. David Aldridge, coming full circle, did this story, and retired players were asked a number of things about today's game, and they said, "Who do you who do you enjoy watching the most?" And Steph Curry, I think, was one. Ja Morant was like 2 or 3. Like the old heads like him too. Like he said, a dynamic player. It's not like anybody is who doesn't want to see Ja Morant on the court doing this thing. And so, but you want the other stuff to be figured out too.
Yeah. He's still young. He still has time to turn it around. But everybody, family, and the Grizzlies, like the NBA, everybody has to Ja has to receive this, but everybody around him has to be better. Like the Grizzlies have to be better in making him accountable. Even there's no statement from the Grizzlies condemning what's been going on. They don't even say it's their 2-game, suspension. It's just like a suspension take place. Like you gotta let people know, like, hey, we have a standard and we have to live to that standard, or you can't play in this league.
Absolutely.
Marc Spears, thank you for setting the standard in your profession at a high level for 24 years. We're just, we're so proud of you, man.
Thank you,
Take care. We'll talk to you soon.
Love y'all.
All right, here's a tweet from the Baltimore Ravens. Pretty simple tweet. We have used the franchise tag on quarterback Lamar Jackson, and that's still. See, this is why, Robert Mays, we need journalists. Because a journalist will say, no, he didn't just use the franchise. That's the franchise tag. There's an exclusive, there's non-exclusive. We've used the non-exclusive franchise tag on Lamar Jackson, which is what the tweet should have said. And if it had said that, I'd go to Robert Mays, like I am right now, and say, what does that mean to you?
To me, it means that the Ravens want to put this ball in someone else's court. They've been going back and forth with Lamar Jackson for so long, and they've had sticking points on guaranteed money and structure and all that. By giving him the non-exclusive franchise tag, you're essentially putting the onus on other teams to do the negotiating for you while still having the right to match any offer that he might get. So I understand it if it's a product of frustration from Baltimore's side, which clearly they are frustrated with where things are. So either way, it's fascinating. The idea that a former MVP who's 26, going to be 27 years old would be, in theory, available for a certain price on the open market. We just very rarely see outcomes like this, but that's where we are.
Robert, I guess I would push back a little bit on that, because what it says to me is that they don't value him in such a way that they are not going to let anyone talk to him. When you have a talent such as Lamar Jackson, you know this as well as I do, somebody is going to make an offer to him. And if you're the Ravens and you choose not to match it, what are you saying then? You're saying that you don't value Lamar Jackson, in my opinion, to the level that he should be valued. And you're also saying to your fans, I believe, that, you know what, it's going to be a bumpy ride for a few years, because you have built everything around that one player, everything. And now you've got to go back and redo it. So push back on me if you feel I'm wrong, Robert, because I would say the Ravens have mismanaged this from the start. And that's going back a couple of years in terms of allowing it to get to this point. Agree or disagree?
Oh, I don't think that I absolutely think it says that they don't value him to the degree that you typically value a franchise quarterback, a top 5 quarterback, because you would never let it get to this place. If you had a guy that you thought was in this realm, in this tier of guys, you would never let anybody else have a conversation with him. So I absolutely think it's a sign that they do not value Lamar Jackson at the level that he thinks he's valued. If he thinks that he deserves the Deshaun Watson contract and he deserves a fully guaranteed deal, I think this is absolutely a commentary on the Ravens saying we do not value you at that level. So if you can go out and get that from somebody else, we'll take the 2 first-round picks and we'll start over again. I think for the exact reasons that you're saying, that's a tough pill to swallow. I mean, they don't have an alternative. They have a team that they've built into a contender with some aging players on the roster. And they are made to win right now with Lamar Jackson at quarterback. So the pivot from that, it's going to be a tough road and it's going to be a painful process no matter how you look at it. But Jim, you can correct me if I'm wrong. Everything they've done through the media, every bit of frustration that Jim Harbaugh has shown, Eric DaCosta kind of being a little bit prickly in some of the things he said at the podium, it seems like this team is shaken in a way that we rarely see them shaken. You know, think about how often they were operating from a position of strength during the Ozzie Newsome era, where their heartbeat was the same all the time. They were patient.
Absolutely.
They never negotiated from a position of weakness. They always seemed comfortable with their footing in every situation. This is the first time in a long time where I kind of see them shaking a little bit and unsure of how they want to proceed and unsure of how they can proceed on their timeline, which they so often dictate.
Can I say I agree with you 100% on that? And this is the point I was making to Michael earlier. They have never dealt with a player like Lamar before, and many teams in the NFL haven't from this standpoint. He stands on what he believes regardless of what anyone else thinks. That's who he is. As I say, he is the most authentic player in the NFL that I know. It's not unlike the NFL when it gets into legal trouble, right? And someone sues them or whatever. And they always wait until they get to the point of discovery where they say, okay, let's settle. We don't want this being known, because they know everyone has a price, right? And I think the Ravens thought that Lamar Jackson could get pushed to that point and then say, you know what, I've gone about as far as I can go. Here's my price. And he takes it. He takes a lesser thing. Whereas Lamar is saying, not happening. I know what my value is. This is what I believe my value is. And if you don't like it, I'm okay with it. And I think that that's probably what frustrates him, is that this ain't a guy you can budge on whatever leverage point you think you can use with him, whether it's talking about how it affects the team, what impact it has on teammates or the organization going forward in terms of its ability to win. Lamar is playing straight business here. And he's saying, I know what my value is, period. Pay me or else.
And I know the value of both of you, very educated commentators. So we're going to get some educated guessing going on where Lamar is going next. Or I shouldn't say where he's going next. Which teams might be putting their pennies together saying, all right, we got to create some space for our Lamar Jackson offer. And we've got about 8 days to do it. Let's throw out 3 or 4 names out there. What do you guys think? What do you think, Robert?
I think I don't know, because the team that always made the most sense to me, especially on a football level, was Atlanta. I mean, you look at the way that their offense is structured. You look at the way their scheme is. They're cousins to what the Ravens do. And they had the financial flexibility to do it. They had a high draft pick and they have a quarterback need. So putting those pieces together 2 weeks ago, it's like, man, that would be such an interesting landing spot. I think that Arthur Smith could do so much with him. Coming out of the combine, I no longer thought that Atlanta was a team that wanted him, or that was the place he was going to go. And Diana Rossini from ESPN just reported that the Falcons are not going to pursue him. So now I wonder who those teams are. If the Jets miss out on Aaron Rodgers, are they a destination for him? Because if you choose Lamar Jackson, you choose a very specific timeline and a very specific way of constructing your team, both in terms of the resources that you have to allocate, that's the way you want to play. So I just don't know which teams are dissatisfied enough with their quarterback situation and have the amount of resources that would want to go down that path. Jim, I'm fascinated by who you think are players for this.
I said this to Michael earlier to echo your point. One of the first teams I said was Atlanta. I think he's a perfect fit. And let me say this before I continue. I don't believe what any team says to me right now when it says it's not interested or it's not going to go down that road. They all lie at this point, and they don't want to create a market where the price is being driven up. So I'll wait to see how it ends up. But I said Atlanta first, and the second team that I said was Miami. Miami's drafting near the bottom of the first round. Who cares if it gives up a first-round pick there? As I said earlier, even if you were drafting in the top 10 and looking for a quarterback, it's a crapshoot. Here you have an established player that you know about. And the other thing I would say why Miami, too, I would keep an eye on, is that if they do go down this road with Lamar, there's nothing to stop them from saying, then, you know what? We'll move on from Tua. We can trade him. What do we get back in return for him from a team that needs a quarterback? So those are the 2 teams in my mind that stand out, would be Atlanta and Miami.
And see,
I love Miami.
What, Robert, and yeah, me too. I think Robert and Jim, I'll say this quickly. Look, Lamar can handle, I want to keep saying this, Lamar can handle the intellectual side of contract negotiations. I got it. And that's not what I'm saying. But this is where an agent comes in, another area where an agent helps you. So it's already out there. Ian Rappaport report, the trade market, not as strong as he thinks, and you got to play a certain way if you're going to have Lamar. And if I'm Lamar, I'm going to come back. My narrative is I played that way in Baltimore, but I got a lot more than you haven't seen. I
played in a pro-style offense in college.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I can adapt. And the other thing I want to say is I think there'll be a surprise team or two. Like, would you be shocked if Houston came in? Well, if Houston.
I'd be surprised just because of how methodically they've built it so far. And I guess that's kind of how I feel about Atlanta.
Is that like they've done? You call that methodical? Houston.
I mean, they've been very patient. There's not a lot of urgency going on down there, for better or for worse. And so it's hard to know which teams are willing to commit those sort of resources. With Houston especially, they can get on a rookie quarterback timeline. They can just build this in a way that we've seen be successful for other teams. And that's why some of these other teams that, like Atlanta is another example, this is your shot. Are you willing to take your shot at quarterback with the resources that you have? And I think that there's risk involved in that. It's a worthwhile risk, no doubt. But I think it becomes a question of which team is willing to take their swing at the position now that might not have been before he was available. And I don't know the answer to that.
Robert Mays, always a pleasure, man. Thanks for taking the time with us. And hey, this story is just getting started. So I'm sure there's going to be a lot of speculation, a lot of back and forth, a lot of whispering on both sides. Well, they did this, they did that. We're all here for it. I can't wait. Really can't. Good to see you, Robert.
Appreciate you, Robert.
Talk to you guys soon.
Jim Trotter, I love an item in your feed when you talk about the greatest player of all time. That would be Bill Russell. You watched the Docu-Series. What'd you think?
Phenomenal. Phenomenal. You know, we were just talking about Lamar Jackson standing on principle and what he believes his value is. That is something Bill Russell did every day of his adult life. I loved it.
Yeah, and every day, you're right. And a lot of it we knew about, and a lot of it happened behind the scenes as he was playing, after his career was over. Yeah, that's a worthy cause. Good to see you, man.
A treasure.
Talk to you later. Hey, thank you for watching Brother from Another. If you haven't hit that subscribe button, go ahead and do that now. Don't forget, you can catch us 3 to 4 weekdays on PeacockTV.com and on Sirius XM Channel 85.